Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video of Fox Flicks on SCP Explained. Today, we're going to see what happens if SCP-035, aka the Living Mask, was to be thrown into SCP-3008, the Infinite IKEA. Let's see what happens when a mask that destroys its host enters a place with unlimited host.
Having your ordinary life unceremoniously change forever without a moment's notice is something that people can often find themselves hoping for. Anything to break life's monotony and change circumstances to make them more interesting. Although when that change comes in the form of being trapped in an endless IKEA outlet, it's not exactly the different kind of circumstances that people usually hope for. That was the situation that had befallen Winston not too long ago. What started as a simplistic, straightforward shopping trip with the goal of purchasing some affordable, stylish Swedish furniture had resulted in him having to adopt a completely different lifestyle. You see, Winston was one of the untold number of people to have an encounter with SCP-3008, better known colloquially as the Infinite IKEA. Appearing as an ordinary store, those entering the doors of SCP-3008 find themselves in an unending labyrinth of aisles upon aisles filled with flat-pack
come the hell on. And we're back.
Homeware. It can be quite the system shock, of course, especially when people that find themselves inside the Infinite IKEA learn there's no way to escape, even by retracing their steps back the way they came. Doing so, they'll only be met with a disheartening realization that the entrance isn't where it was upon their arrival. Now at first, learning that you've lost your entire life and are doomed to spend the rest of your days inside a limitless IKEA is admittedly a lot to take in. Your friends, family, job, all your worldly possessions are now unreachable, and everyone back home might likely spend many years wondering what happened to you. But it's not all bad news. As previously mentioned, Winston wasn't the only one to find himself in this predicament. Over the years, countless people have found their way inside the Infinite IKEA. Given how expansive the interior of the never-ending store was, there has never been a way to know for certain exactly how many people have come to reside within SCP-3008. But it's enough to populate the number of small settlements that these survivors have been able to establish inside. By innovatively repurposing the materials around them, these individuals have found themselves to be the new denizens of SCP-3008. Imagine whole towns constructed from chairs and tables that have been used as building materials to provide a place of sanctuary to those that need it when they first arrive in the Infinite IKEA. Sure, it takes a pretty big adjustment to this new lifestyle, but luckily, SCP-3008 provides for its inhabitants by automatically replenishing the food within its canteen. Naturally, it only offers items that are on the IKEA menu, but that's at least a consistent source of food and nutrition for those dwelling in its aisles. With food already taken care of, people inside SCP-3008 didn't even need to work. That was the strangest part that Winston found himself having to adapt to when he first got to the settlement of Cookware, named after the nearby sign that hung from the ceiling nearby, denoting one of the many departments of the store. It was odd to him how friendly everyone was, how much the people trapped inside 3008 cut off from the outside world forever seemed happy. There were many who'd been there for the longest that even claimed it was a better sense of life than out there in the real world. Inside the IKEA, there was a strong sense of community. Settlements helped each other out with construction, and because everything was provided for, no one had any need for selfishness or greed. After all, there was plenty of food to go around and money had no relevance. Ironic given they were all living inside a huge furniture store. Witnessing all of that helped Winston adapt to his new life inside SCP-3008 and made him feel a lot better about being in this predicament. The only real thing anyone inside the Infinite IKEA had to worry about was the threat of the staff. These were the tall, faceless humanoids with elongated arms and legs that roamed the aisles of the furniture store while wearing distinctive IKEA uniforms. Most of the time, they remained docile, paying the human survivors little attention. That is, until the fluorescent lights above dimmed, signaling the beginning of nighttime. The staff usually became aggressive, repeating the ominous phrase, "The store is now closed. Please exit the building. Please exit the building," and attacking anyone they came into contact with. Thanks to their ingenuity, the survivors in the IKEA had constructed barriers around their settlements to keep the staff out. And that did the trick, repelling the faceless employees that come at night. But little did anyone inside SCP-3008 realize that simple barricades wouldn't stop an entirely new threat from entering the store to disrupt their peaceful way of life. For outside the infinite IKEA, something wicked was stirring. Meanwhile, at a facility belonging to the
Oh, come
Tiny
on.
chance.
And we're back.
SCP Foundation, a researcher by the name of Corbin Donnell had recently been assigned
Alright,
to
Corbin, what are you doing?
SCP-035. Also known as the Possessive Mask, this white porcelain mask could shift between a comedy grin or a tragic frown. It also had the nasty trait of being an evil psychic artifact that could manipulate anyone
35 is
around
kind
it
of an
into placing the
asshole.
mask over their face. At that point,
everyone knows he's an
SCP-035
asshole.
would take full control of its wearer, making them into a host for the mask itself. So, would you like to take a guess as to what happened to researcher Donnell?
He
The
put it
voice
on?
in his head, that persuasive whisper, it wouldn't leave him alone. All day long, it was there, but whenever Corbin was near SCP-035, it got louder, and as the days he was studying
put
the
it on,
possessive
didn't
mask
he?
went on, the whisper became a shout. The screams to put on the mask were taunting him, keeping him awake at night, tormenting him all through the waking day, until eventually he'd had enough. Given that SCP-035 produced a corrosive black substance that usually melted anything around it, the mask had to periodically be taken out of its containment case so that the container housing it could be replaced. And it was during one of these
replace,
transfers
not
that
clean.
researcher Donnell calmly swept in, pushing away the guards taking it out of its melted case
dude?
before they could place it in a new one. The aggression from the researcher caught the security personnel by surprise, as did what he did next. Not caring what the
Yep,
possessive
he
mask
put
would
it
do
on.
to him, Corbin lifted the white porcelain to his face. He wasn't even aware that the
Dumbass.
containment breach alarms were sounding. All that noise sank into the background as the psychic voice in his head got louder than it ever had before. There wasn't even so much as a split-second awareness from researcher Donnell of the searing pain as the dark sludge oozing from the mask made contact with his skin, melting his face
God.
as he wore
Instantly he's
SCP-035. By that point, it was already too late. The possessive mask had full control. Corbin's body wasn't his own anymore, although it still moved, walking quickly out of the room and through the halls of the Foundation facility.
Follow
The
me,
researcher
follow me,
beneath
I'm just
was
leaving,
already
but
dead. There was only SCP-035, piloting its newest host to freedom.
So how
Of
did
course,
it get
while
into the
containment breach
IKEA?
was still an urgent matter, the Foundation knew that SCP-035's biggest weakness was itself. The black secretion that poured out of the possessive mask would melt anything it came into contact with, and would ultimately cause the body of its host to melt into nothing. Once that
Leaving
happened, it
him
would be far
stuck.
easier to recontain SCP-035. Someone would merely have to pick it up and place it back in the containment
And
case.
done.
However, SCP-035 knew this, too. The mask itself was cunning. It hadn't just picked researcher Donnell at random to be its new vehicle. It wanted him specifically because of his previous posting. Before he had
Which
worked
was
with
well.
SCP-035,
Which was
Corbin
well.
had been stationed to observe any potential changes at the
Oh.
entrance of SCP-3008.
So he
As it
knows
stayed
the
firmly
location.
on the researcher's face, using him to carry itself out of the Foundation site it had been trapped in, SCP-035 was scouring the remnants of Corbin's mind. It used its innate psychic abilities to plunder the depths of his brain, looking for information. The location of SCP-3008 was right there, stored away safely in researcher Donnell's
So
memories,
that's how it gets into
as
the
was the way
IKEA.
to get there. And on top of that, the reason SCP-035 had taken such an interest in making it to the infinite IKEA. During the
Infinite
Foundation's
host?
many years of study and exploration of SCP-3008, they came to learn that not all of the survivors inside the infinite IKEA had originated from the same universe. The current
Oh.
theory was that the entrances to this endless furniture store
Okay.
existed simultaneously in multiple realities, meaning that the people now living alongside each other inside SCP-3008 were actually from varying different worlds across the multiverse. Now, if you
Okay,
were incredibly
now I'm
cunning,
intrigued.
incredibly clever, and incredibly sick of being held captive by the Foundation,
Also, I
then
didn't even
perhaps
know
you could
that.
figure out a way to navigate your way through the infinite IKEA. You could enter through the front door in one universe, and then exit into another. And of course, that was what the possessive mask was planning to do. As it approached the main entrance of SCP-3008, the black sludge leaking out of the mask had almost destroyed what was left of researcher Corbin Donnell. It wiped more of the corrosive secretion onto the guards stationed at the Infinite IKEA, melting through them as SCP-035 made its way inside. First things first, the mask knew it had to find itself a new body to pilot before Corbin's expired. And it didn't take long for the possessive mask to happen across an unwitting candidate between the aisles of flat-pack tables. At around the same time this was happening, Winston, having long since gotten used to the rhythm of life inside SCP-3008, was on his way to the food court. He knew the route by heart now, and as he strolled closer, he was pondering over what he'd help himself to today from the menu. But it was while making his way there that he noticed something, or rather, he noticed not something, that he usually did. There were no staff anywhere around. Although they did not pay the survivors any mind during the day, when the lights of the IKEA were on, Winston knew that the staff members were always present. There were usually a couple milling about the aisles he had to pass in order to get from the settlement of cookware to the food hall, but today, there were none. And while this wouldn't usually be any cause for alarm, it kept playing on Winston's mind as he sat down to eat his plate of Swedish meatballs. He'd been inside SCP-3008 for such a long time.
And we're back. Frickin' the ads, I tell you.
That he'd become accustomed to the routine of living there, and the absence of the staff immediately stuck out as something that was out of its usual place. Finishing his food, Winston asked around, talking with his fellow residents of the Infinite IKEA, asking if any of them had encountered any of the tall, faceless staff members on their way to get their meals.
Has anyone
Each
seen
and
the
every
staff?
one of them that he asked, from varying different settlements, all answered the same, that they hadn't spotted any staff all day. As much as they were a minor threat to the human beings living inside the Infinite IKEA, the absence of the store's only other residents kept playing on Winston's mind. Whatever was going on, the staff seemingly vanishing couldn't mean anything good. And so he decided to venture out into the aisles to figure out what exactly was going on. What he found was unlike anything anyone had ever seen in SCP-3008 before. It took Winston several long and uneventful hours to catch even a momentary glimpse of a staff member. He almost felt like someone trekking through a forest looking to get a sighting of Bigfoot or some other elusive urban legend.
Reference.
But as the third hour became the fourth, he spotted a hint of movement between the aisles. Following at a safe distance, listening out for the slightest sounds, Winston couldn't help but think he detected the noise of something heavy being dragged along the stone floor. Peeking out from between the aisles, he saw them. A huge group of staff members were all huddled in a display dining room. Only there was something different about all of them. They still retained their recognizable tall and humanoid shapes, with long, disproportionate limbs, but there was something smeared over the staff, a dark, oily black substance that seemed to melt through the floor as it dripped off them. From his hiding place, Winston soon saw where that substance had originated from. The thing being dragged across the floor was another staff member, looking more normal than the rest.
Wait, but the goo normally melts whatever it comes into contact with. How is it just controlling the staff? Maybe some strange side effect of 35 combining with 3008-A? Maybe.
One of the
maybe
others,
not.
covered in the corrosive sludge, was gripping it by the collar of its IKEA polo shirt and bringing it through the group. Meanwhile, the ordinary creature was thrashing and flailing its lengthy arms around, trying to get free. It was dragged up to a staff member in the middle of the group, which turned and shocked Winston at the strange sight of it. This staff member, evidently the leader, had a face, or rather, it was wearing a mask. SCP-035 was now firmly affixed to the slender, faceless being, its expression locked in a wide grin that seemed to convey a twisted sense of glee. Its black secretion didn't seem to be affecting its new host in the same way it usually did. The body of the staff member it was now piloting didn't seem to dissolve. As the uncorrupted staff creature was presented to the masked leader, SCP-035 compelled its newfound followers to restrain their prisoner. The workers within SCP-3008 didn't have much in the way of their own free will. or even personalities to speak of. They did, however, seem to share some sort of connection.
So instead of the goo melting them and destroying it, it somehow controls them. It's not a complete explanation, but it seems that because of them having a lack of mask and mental power, well, the mask is able to spread its control throughout. Maybe. I mean, it does sound reasonable.
To each other, a hive mind of sorts. So presented with a powerful psychic force like the possessive mask, the entity had been able to not only take over one of the staff members as its new host, but spread its influence to the others. And while Winston watched horrified, it unknowingly demonstrated this. The captive staff member was grabbed and held by the others, its long arms and legs pulled apart. The huddled group lifted it up off the floor so that it couldn't free itself and run off into the endless aisles of furniture. Wearing SCP-035, the leader extended an arm, black ooze dripping from it, the droplets burning holes in the floor as it reached towards the faceless head of the restrained staff member. It placed a large hand over the faceless head of the captive. More of the corrosive secretion passed on to the newest addition to SCP-035's growing army. As the black substance spread over the staff member, so did the influence of the possessive mask force its way into another vessel.
I'm telling you, I know what I saw!
Winston protested, after recounting the events to the other settlers back at Cookware.
There's something else out there, something new and dangerous, and it's infecting the staff.
Oh, that's ridiculous,
replied Bryce, one of the survivors who had been there much longer.
I've been here for years and I've never even heard of such a thing.
They yelled.
I saw it with my own eyes,
Winston argued.
It has a small army of them already under its control. Even if what you're saying is true,
someone else chimed in.
What does it matter? We've already got barriers that keep the staff out, and they only attack at night anyways. Surely, even if this mask thing really is in control of them now, who cares?
As if on cue, one of the lookouts at the Cookware settlement started frantically trying to get everyone's attention. They pointed to the ominous glow coming from just beyond the nearby aisles filled with wardrobe frames. An orange flicker was visible, even under the lights of the store which were still on, although blocked a little by thick plumes of black smoke rising up towards the ceiling.
That's lighting,
the lookout said in shocked disbelief, stating the name of another nearby community of survivors that was named after an IKEA store department.
Something must have happened over there,
Bryce declared.
Maybe it's an electrical fire that's gotten out of control.
It's them, Winston said solemnly.
It can't be them,
the older survivor snapped.
The lights are still on. It's still daytime in the store and the staff never attack during the day. I don't think the rules are the same anymore.
Frustrated, Winston continued to argue.
There's no telling what that mask did to them. Perhaps.
Bryce was trying desperately to come up with a suggestion, but was clearly grasping at straws.
What if this mask can be reasoned with? If it's more intelligent than the staff, we can negotiate. There must be something it wants. What do you think it wants? It wants this place, this IKEA. And now it has control of enough staff to form a small army. You think it's just gonna stop there?
Actually, no, that is a good idea. Taking the chance to reason with 35 may be your best chance. And it is very intelligent. And it should still be able to communicate, even without the host having a mouth. Well, negotiation may be your best chance at trying to live peacefully with it. Otherwise, kiss your ass goodbye.
Coming for all of us.
Oh,
MPB.
And we're back.
And it won't stop until it's got the whole store under its control. And if it has to wipe us out to do that, well, it looks like it's not hesitating. So what do we do?
A voice called meekly. Winston turned to see the townsfolk of Cookware had gathered, all looking up at him with terrified expressions on their faces. He gazed back at each one of them, then looked back over at the smoke now towering over where lighting had been, and was now in flames.
Yep, that's a file.
Who knew how many of the settlers there were still alive, and how long it would be before SCP-035 and its new army did the same to Cookware. Something had to be done.
We need to get the word out,
Winston announced to the other survivors.
I need our fastest to run over to the other towns in the store. You each take one, you pass on the message, and then you come back. You know your way around well enough, so avoid anywhere you'd normally see staff. Even if they haven't been corrupted, we can't chance it.
Why don't we tell the other settlements?
Somebody in the crowd called.
You tell them what's going on. You say that something has come here to threaten this IKEA and our way of life. This place isn't where any of us first came from, but it's all our home now. It's provided for us, but now it needs us to defend it.
Winston explained.
And how exactly are we gonna do that?
Bryce asked. The lights had gone out, but although night had fallen, it wasn't dark yet. Standing with their fellow survivors from numerous other settlements, the residents of SCP-3008 had fashioned flaming torches from the legs of IKEA desks and tables. And that wasn't all. They were carrying makeshift weapons. Some had spears crafted using curtain rails with sharp kitchen implements fashioned to the end. Others had wardrobe doors in their hands to act as rudimentary shields. They were hardly warriors, but as an army of corrupted staff members lurched out of the darkness towards them, each survivor of SCP-3008 knew what they had to do. At the front of the army towered the staff member with SCP-035 on its faceless head. The possessive mask's wide grin had shifted, now a long frown, almost one of disgust at the amassed settlers who opposed it. As it raised an elongated arm to command its horde, Winston raised a curtain rail spear into the air.
For IKEA!
He yelled, as the residents of SCP-3008 charged. Want to own an SCP of your own? Go to scpswag.com for premium and...
Dude, that is an... yes, I want more of that story. I want more of Winston and the settlers of SCP-3008 against the infected army of 35. Yes! Give us more of that! That story is gonna be freaking awesome! But at last, that's what we're going to call an end for today's video. I want you all to remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. In the description will be a link to the original video, so remember to support the original creator and all they do. And I'll see you all folks next time when we flick on. Peace out.